All right, you sick fucks. You ready to dig into this whole Michael Jackson thing? It's going to be a wild ride.
Well, it's certainly a fascinating story full of highs and lows.
Highs and lows, more like sugar highs and psychotic breaks. Am I right?
Well, his life was certainly full of extremes.
Extremes. That's one word for it? We've got books and documentaries piled up to the ceiling. And let me tell you, it's a whole lot more than just moonwalks and glitter gloves.
We're going to try to paint a complete picture.
Yeah, a picture that'll probably give you nightmares.
Yeah.
But hey, that's what you signed up for, right? So let's start at the beginning, shall we? Back when little Mikey was just a twinkle in Joe Jackson's eye.
Well, he was more than a twinkle. He was the golden ticket.
The golden ticket to what? A lifetime of therapy bills?
Well, Joe Jackson saw his sons as a way out of Gary, Indiana, and he pushed them hard.
Pushed them hard, more like whipped them into shape with a goddamn belt.
His discipline was harsh, there's no denying that. But it did produce results.
Yeah, it results in a whole lot of childhood trauma. But hey, they could sing their little asses off. So I guess it wasn't all bad.
Right. They were incredibly talented. Even before Motown Gladys Knight saw them perform, and she was blown away.
Gladys knew talent when she heard it. And she knew a meal ticket when she saw one. She tipped off the Motown execs. And the rest is history.
They signed with Motown and became a sensation.
A sensation that Berry Gordy exploited to the max. Let's be real. Joe Jackson signed that contract without even reading it. He was so desperate to get his kids out of Gary, he just signed his soul to the devil.
It was a common practice back then. Young artists often signed unfavorable contracts.
Unfavorable, more like highway robbery.
Hey.
But hey, that's the music industry for you. All about the Benjamins, baby. Anyway, the Jackson 5 were Motown's golden boys. For a while, at least.
They were a huge part of Motown's success. They had hit after hit.
Until little Mikey decided he wanted to fly solo. And then the real fun began, Off the Wall. That's when things got interesting, musically speaking.
Off the Wall was a departure from the Jackson 5 sound. It was more mature, funkier, more Michael.
It was like he finally shed that little boy image and became a goddamn sex machine.
It was definitely a turning point in his career.
Yeah, a turning point towards a whole lot of weirdness.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that later. For now, let's bask in the glory of Off the Wall, the album that paved the way for the biggest goddamn album of all time. Thriller.
Thriller was a phenomenon. It broke records, it changed the music industry, it made Michael Jackson a global superstar.
It also made him a little bit crazy, but we'll save that for next time. For now, let's just appreciate the music, the videos, the sheer spectacle of it all.
It was a groundbreaking album in so many ways.
Groundbreaking. Yeah, it broke the mold, and it broke Michael's brain.
Yeah.
But hey, that's the price of fame, right? You get everything you ever wanted, and then it eats you alive.
Fame can be a double-edged sword.
More like a goddamn chainsaw. You get too close and it'll slice you to pieces.
Well, but we'll see how Mikey handles it next time when we dive into the madness of his solo career. Stay tuned, folks. It's about to get weird. All right, freaks. Back for round 2 of the Rocco Jacko circus. Last time we left off, our boy was about as stable as a house of cards in a hurricane. Pills, chimps, and enough debt to make a Wall Street banker blush. So where do we even go from here? Well, things don't exactly get calmer from here on out. This is it. The big comeback tour that was supposed to be his redemption, his big return to the throne.
Redemption. The guy was practically bathing in propofol. That's not a comeback. That's a suicide mission in slow motion.
His dependence on propofol, that was incredibly dangerous. It's a powerful anesthetic not meant for, casual use. And his doctor, Conrad Murray, he was basically enabling this whole thing.
Enabling? He was practically Michael's personal drug dealer, pumping him full of that shit day and night. What kind of quack was this guy?
Well, according to Murray's testimony, he'd been giving Michael Propofol almost every day for like 2 months before his death. And on top of that, other sedatives the night before. It was a lethal cocktail, no doubt about it.
Okay, so paint the picture. June 25th, 2009. What the hell happened?
Michael was found unresponsive in his bedroom. Murray tried CPR, but it was too late. Paramedics rushed him to the hospital, but he was pronounced dead pretty much right after.
Dead as a doornail. Another victim of fame, addiction, and a doctor who was about as competent as a monkey with a scalpel.
The autopsy showed it was acute propofol intoxication. Death was ruled a homicide, and Murray was convicted of involuntary manslaughter. Served 2 years.
2 years for killing the king of pop. The justice system is a bigger joke than Michael's plastic surgery.
It was a tragic end, there's no denying that. It shocked the world, everyone was mourning, millions of fans heartbroken. A reminder that even the biggest stars, they're just as fragile as anyone else.
Fragile. The guy was a walking time bomb. You can't live that kind of life with that kind of pressure and expect to come out unscathed. He brought a lot of this on himself.
His choices definitely played a role in his downfall. But you can't ignore the pressure he was under, the constant scrutiny, the insane drive for perfection.
Perfection. He was obsessed with changing his face, building a Neverland fantasy world, clinging to childhood. The dude was as far from perfect as you could get.
Maybe that pursuit of perfection, it was his way of coping, a way of dealing with the impossible demands of fame and the public eye.
Coping, he was a goddamn mess.
Yeah.
A brilliant mess, sure, but a mess all the same. So what's the final verdict? Musical genius? Tragic figure? Or just a straight-up freak show?
It's complicated. His legacy is this mix of brilliance and darkness, impossible to separate. The music, the artistry, the global impact, it's undeniable. But the personal struggles, the controversies, those shadows just keep hanging over everything.
Shadows. Those are some goddamn storm clouds.
Yeah.
But the music, yeah, that's still here. So crank up Thriller, dust off your moonwalk, and let's celebrate the strange, the bizarre, the one and only Michael Jackson. Just maybe skip the sleepovers at Neverland, okay? Okay, you rubberneckers, time for the grand finale of this Michael Jackson shit show.
Yeah.
We've been through the highs, the lows, the chimps, the pills, the debt, the lawsuits, the Neverland weirdness, but we're not done yet. There are a few more skeletons in this sparkly closet we got to dig up before we can finally put this whole thing to rest.
Well, there are certainly some unresolved issues and lingering questions we can explore.
Unresolved issues. This whole goddamn saga is an unresolved issue. But let's start with the one that still has everyone scratching their heads. The marriage to Lisa Marie Presley. What the hell was that all about?
It was certainly a high-profile and somewhat perplexing union.
Perplexing. It was like pairing a unicorn with a goddamn gremlin. Elvis's daughter and the king of pop talk about a recipe for disaster.
Well, their marriage in 1994 did occur just months after those initial child abuse allegations came out.
Oh yeah, the timing was totally coincidental. Nothing to see here, folks. Just two crazy kids in love. Give me a break. This was a PR stunt. Plain and simple. A desperate attempt to make Michael look less creepy and more, normal.
Some people did view it as a calculated move to rehabilitate his image.
Rehabilitate his image. He needed goddamn exorcism. But hey, it kept the tabloids busy for a while, which is all that really mattered, right? So how long did this sham of a marriage actually last?
Less than 2 years. They divorced in 1996.
2 years. That's like a century in Hollywood time. But let's move on to Michael's other true love. Spending money. The dude was making millions, but he was burning through it faster than a pyromaniac at a bonfire. How the hell does that even happen?
Well, his spending habits were rather extravagant.
Extravagant. He was buying solid gold toilets while his accountants were having goddamn panic attacks. Neverland Ranch was a money pit. The entourage was massive. The shopping sprees were legendary. And let's not forget those legal fees.
Yes, the legal fees were considerable, given the various lawsuits and allegations he faced.
Lawsuits. The dude was practically a magnet for legal trouble. It's like he was trying to break some kind of record for the most lawsuits filed against a single person. But seriously, how do you go from being the biggest pop star on the planet to being broke as a joke?
It's a classic tale of financial mismanagement. He was borrowing heavily against his future earnings, his music catalog. By the time of his death, he was in significant debt.
Significant debt. He owed more money than most countries. Talk about living in a fantasy world. Okay, enough about the money. Let's get to the really weird shit. What's the deal with that hyperbaric chamber? Was he actually sleeping in that thing? Or was it just a prop for his freak show?
He claimed to use it for health benefits.
Health benefits. He was more obsessed with his appearance than a goddamn Instagram influencer. The hyperbaric chamber, the plastic surgery, the skin lightening, the pet chimp, it's all part of this whole Peter Pan syndrome, this refusal to grow old and face reality.
Neverland Ranch certainly seemed to reflect a desire to escape the pressures of adulthood.
He was living in a goddamn asylum of his own making. But hey, it was entertaining, right? Okay, time for the final verdict. Was Michael Jackson a musical genius, a tragic victim, a creepy predator, or just a plain old weirdo?
Ultimately, his legacy is complex and multifaceted. There's the undeniable talent, the innovation, the cultural impact, but those aspects are intertwined with the controversies, the accusations, the dark side of his personal life. It's impossible to separate them.
Impossible to separate. It's like trying to untangle a goddamn Christmas tree lights after a whole bottle of whiskey. But hey, the music lives on, right? It's crank up Thriller. Dust off your moonwalk and remember the king of pop in all his bizarre glory. Just maybe skip the Neverland sleepover, okay? That's all the time we have for this deep dive, folks. Join us next time for another roller coaster ride through the dark and twisted world of music. Until then, stay freaky, Stay curious and try not to end up like Michael Jackson.